Okay. So hey, I want to welcome everyone to this. I think is this the fourth town hall, Aaron?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, nice. And today we're going to be talking about HB 2290, which is a UBI bill that I believe is funded by a fine on carbon tax or fine on carbon usage. Something. Do you want to clarify that for
Carbon.
me?
Well, yes,
How do you want to
it's
how do you
it's
want to
a
word that?
well, it's a penalty on carbon pollution.
Okay, very nice, very nice. And so I guess you want to kind of can you give everyone who's watching like a little overview of what the bill kind of entails that hasn't had a chance to look at it or read it?
Yeah, I mean it's a pretty simple bill. It's only 3 pages long. Essentially, what the bill seeks out to do is give every single Kansan $500 a month for life. And I think we see a lot of households, especially in Wyandotte County, where you have four individuals in the same house. So it's $500 per person per month for life. But if you're talking about four individuals in that one house, we're really talking about that one household is going to get $2,000 a month because this is 500 per person. Um, and the way we're going to fund this universal basic income is with um, by penalizing pollution, because in Kansas, every single year, 32 million metric tons of CO2 is dumped into our air, and CO2 is the number one greenhouse emitter in the greenhouse gas, which is warming our planet, and it's causing so many problems. But so I just think this is such a great solution, because essentially what we're going ahead and doing is we're penalizing pollution to fund our COVID-19 economic recovery. Because what we typically see, I'm a working class person myself, what we usually see with working class people is when you give them money, they go out in the community and they spend that money right away. If you give money to some CEOs or to some corporation, they're just going to invest that straight into stocks. So if you give every Kansan $500 a month, they're going to go out and spend that money in the economy, and this is going to grow the economy and create jobs.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, and you're all right. Everyone, we all buy groceries. We all, probably buy our clothes here. I'm sure some people go outside of Wyandotte for that, but
Right.
for the most part, a lot of the basic needs that people in Wyandotte County need are procured here in the county. And so if we have a way to give them
Absolutely.
money to spend, it's only logical that that would help boost the economy. So I guess then what kind of fuels does this bill fine then? I know I seen like coal and was one of the main ones. Is there any other ones? Or
Yeah,
is
I
it
mean,
just
there's a
basically
there's a
coal?
number of fuels that this bill penalizes, and there's a number of fuels that I've intentionally left out. The the sources of the fuels which are penalized under this bill are butane, coal, clear diesel, fuel oil, kerosene, natural gas, and propane. But this bill does not it doesn't it's not going to penalize gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel. And the reason I don't want those three fuels penalized is, number one, the first one that's not going to be included in this bill is gasoline, is because that's something, you need gasoline to fuel your car, and it's just not going to make sense to penalize gasoline, because you need the transportation industry. And then the second one, which is not going to be included in this bill, is dyed diesel fuel. And if anybody knows about dyed diesel fuel or red diesel, that is diesel which is only for off-road use, and we typically see that with farm equipment. So we don't want to impact the farmers either, because Kansas is a deep agricultural state. Actually, the biggest industry in Kansas is agriculture. So for that reason, we don't want to be pin the burden on the farmers. So dyed diesel fuel has been not included as well. And then the third fuel that's not included is jet fuel. And it's just, you just cannot, I do realize, um, the air industry, the air travel industry is a big source of CO2. But the reason why I decided to keep jet fuel off of this bill is because what would just happen, honestly, is the planes would land in Kansas, pick up passengers, and just go refuel somewhere else. So there's no point. But there is a list of, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's 7 fuels which are included, and there's 3 fuels not included.
Definitely. I was curious, do you think you'd be open to an amendment for clear diesel, since that is what a lot of, I think, truckers use and stuff, and that would penalize the trucking industry? Or do you think these
Yeah,
are...
I think that was, could have been a little bit of an oversight. I did include gasoline because that is a big transportation in the transportation industry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think leaving clear diesel as one of the ones that attacks was a little bit of an oversight. Just because, me personally, when I fill up my car, I'm using gasoline, but a lot of people I do know, especially big semi truckers, they do use clear diesel. So I do think that could have been an oversight that, when this bill does get here, I could offer that up as, because that's a simple change. Is you're just moving the
I
word
was just saying because
clear
a lot of
diesel.
farmers even use diesel trucks,
Yeah,
and just I-70 going straight through Kansas, lots of truckers go through there,
right. Lots of
to
semi
use that.
trucks, right.
Yeah. So, for sure. So I guess my next question is, who's like the main tax source do you think that this bill will, or I guess I shouldn't say tax source, it'd be a fine technically.
Right.
So what industries do you think in Kansas would be mostly fined for, I guess, using these types of fuels?
Right. I mean, yeah, we're going to be penalizing pollution, and the people responsible for paying this fine are distributors distributors of fuel. And under the bill, distributor is defined as any entity that imports or causes to be imported fuel for use, distribution, or sale within the state, or any entity that produces fuel within the state. So essentially, if you're an importer of coal, or if you're an importer of, you can go down the list of the fuels which are included in this bill. That is who is responsible, is the distributor of these fuels.
Nice. No, and that all makes sense for sure. So I guess, and I feel like you kind of answered this a little bit up top, but you didn't directly say it. So average citizens wouldn't be directly fined with this bill then, right? It would just be mostly corporations.
Right, absolutely a lot. You're absolutely correct. I mean, you're not in, the average citizen is not, placing imports of coal. And we've already mentioned, because one thing they always say is, oh, well, you're when you fill up your car, the price is going to go up. But, gasoline is not included on this. So average citizens, when they go, and we do need to change clear diesel and make sure that's one of the fuels not included. But once we make that change, gasoline and clear diesel are not going to be included. So there's no way for you to be directly impacted by this in any way. Actually, you can only be positively impacted because you're going to be receiving that $500 a month.
Definitely, no, and that all makes sense. My next question is, I guess, so a lot of like, let's say, because we kind of talk about coal because that's one of like I know they say clean coal, but coal is like one of the like, worst energy sources to burn. And I know Wyandotte County. I actually remember talking to Zach Pastor, and I forget. I think he said that Wyandotte County actually gets most of its coal from, I think, Wyoming, and then they burn it here.
Yeah.
Which I find kind of funny. I mean, I guess Kansas doesn't have like coal mines, I don't believe.
Right.
So I guess it makes sense. But you know, the reason I say this is, I guess the fine on coal, would that directly increase the utility cost for residents? And if so, what would offset that, if you will?
No, utility prices will not go up. And in fact, only the opposite is true, because utility companies will switch to wind or solar, and wind energy has proven to actually be cheaper than coal. So in fact, your utility bill will go down because I mean, just think about this. When you have to put in all this labor to mine the coal, to store the coal, to transport the coal, and then to burn the coal, and each time you need electricity, you have to repeat that cycle all over again. So coal is just very inefficient compared to wind energy. It's constantly blowing, it's constantly windy in Kansas. So especially, I think actually I was thinking Kansas is actually number one or number two state in the country for wind energy, just because it's so windy here. But you have to realize, okay, this windmill, when you build the windmill, maybe the first year or two is not going to pay for itself, but I think it's after year 3 or 4, the windmill pays for itself. Okay, it pays for itself, and the lifespan of a wind turbine is 25 years. So it pays for itself in the first 3 or 4 years, and it lasts 25 years. I mean, wind energy is it's basically free energy almost. There is an initial setup cost, but if we could get these utility companies to switch to wind and stop burning coal, there would be a massive savings to the average person's utility bill.
Definitely. How about, what do you think about solar?
Yeah, no, I think solar is a great option. I wish the restrictions, especially I know in Kansas, we make it extremely hard for somebody to put solar on their roof. I think rooftop solar is a great option. And if we could somehow get that hooked up to the power grid, and then when you have, because let's say you're not, you at your house, you're not using all that solar energy, you could send that solar energy back into the grid and get, utility credits, that you could use those energy credits at night when your solar panels aren't collecting any energy. So I think we need to look at micro generation. Let's get solar panels onto people's roofs, but on the larger scale, let's get wind energy, because that's just something that's been proven to be really reliable here in Kansas, and it's so much cheaper than coal because it's practically free after it pays for itself.
No, definitely. So basically, I mean, I feel like it's almost kind of forcing their hand to shift their prerogative and how they create energy for us and sell it to us. From, I guess, coal and other sources to, wind or solar, which I feel like is much more favorable for the environment. I know people complain about wind turbines being an eyesore, but I'll tell you, my family's from Western Kansas. My grandfather spent the end of the couple last of his years trying to drill for oil in his land, and it was fruitless. And there's nothing I feel more of a bigger eyesore than seeing that giant arm go up and down, pumping oil out of the ground. And not to mention, most farmers who do strike oil end up moving because they know that there are negative health side effects related to that within certain mileage of being next to oil wells. So
Right, and not just to be near the oil production facilities, where they're extracting that oil, but also just to be anywhere in the vicinity of where they're burning coal, or where they're burning gas, or where they're burning oil. You don't want to be in the vicinity of those areas. So, number one, burning fossil fuels costs more money than renewable. And then number two, we're just talking about the financial cost, but let's talk about the health cost. So you got the health cost of fossil fuels, and then you have the financial cost, so fossil fuels just doesn't make sense. And the reason why these utility companies are sticking with the fossil fuels is because they're getting kickbacks by these fossil fuel companies. But if you go ahead and start penalizing carbon pollution, and as soon as pollution is costing the money, they're going to say, you know what, I know I'm getting kickback from the fossil fuel industry, but I need to switch over because I'm getting penalized by the state of Kansas for polluting the environment.
No, definitely, definitely. So hey, we got a little time left. I'm gonna circle back. I see a couple questions in the discussion tab. Um, one is from a gentleman, and he was asking, and we kind of answered this at the beginning. Feel like
Okay.
he might have come in late, but no reason we can't go back over it. So he wants to know what kind of fuels are being taxed, and he mentions, um, coal. Was it? Uh, let me read this real quick. So he mentions, the list of fuels that are being taxed, or I guess we won't technically fined is what I
Yeah,
think the
there's
legislation
no
calls
tax.
for. So it's not
Because there's
necessarily a tax.
Yeah, there's no tax because this isn't a tax. This isn't a tax on the fuel. This is a fine. This is a penalty for the carbon pollution emitted into the air. And these are the fuels which once they correct that carbon pollution, then that carbon pollution will be penalized.
Definitely. And so then he wants to know, does this mean that there's going to be a tax on like his electricity, gas heating, and his charcoal grill? Now, I assume
No,
charcoal grill would not.
charcoal's not included.
Okay, definitely. And so then how about on his electricity and gas heating would be his question.
Well, we just discussed, with the electricity where, if these utility companies did switch over to wind, since wind is just so much more efficient than coal, your electricity bill would go down. It would go down. And no, I'm assuming his gas, I'm assuming he's using natural gas to heat his house. You know, okay, yeah, your natural gas bill might go up a little bit, but you also have to realize you're getting $500 per person in your household. So if you have a household of 3 people, you're getting $1,500 a month. So if your natural gas bill goes from being $50 to being $90, you know, you're paying a little bit more on your natural gas bill, but now your family of 3 is making $1,500 a month. I think that's a pretty good deal. I mean, I don't know.
No, definitely, definitely. And I guess so just real quick, you name off examples of corporations that'd be affected by this?
Well, it's not necessarily, corporations. It's like just, entire industries. We're talking about the utility industry would be paying pollution, would be paying fines on pollution. It would be, heavy industry, just, stuff like that. I mean, basically anybody who distributes fuel. I mean, I don't have a specific list of companies, but there is currently in Kansas every single year 32 million metric tons of CO2 recklessly dumped into our air, and so the carbon is out there to be penalized. So
No, yeah, definitely. Um, let me see what else. Excuse me while I sift through these. So I guess the next question is: do you think there technically be enough corporations that would be hit with this fine to actually be able to fund the UBI? I know. Were there some numbers crunched when involved? Doing this, I would assume.
yes, here's the numbers crunched. So here's the math. So $500 times 12 equals $6,000 per year per Kansan. Okay, so 6,000 times 17 million, which that's how many taxpayers we have in Kansas, equals $10 billion. So you take the previous number of where we have 36 million metric tons of CO2. So you divide the $10 billion that you need a year to fund this program, divided by 36 million metric tons, and that equals, so to fund the program, you need $290 per ton of CO2. While we did need 290 tons, $290. I've said at 300. So there's a little room for error there. So there's just so much carbon out there that just by setting it at a very low reasonable rate, because you have to realize carbon doesn't weigh that much. We're talking about atoms, like molecules. To get a ton of carbon, that's massive. So just to only don't have to only pay $300 for 1 ton. That's a low rate, and it's just because there's just so much. There's 36 million tons of carbon times $300. That's almost $11 billion. And you divide that by 17. I mean, excuse me. Divide that by 1,700,000. That gives everybody, just going back on the math, that's enough to give every Kansan $6,000 a year, or break that down even further, that's $500 a month.
Fair enough.
So the math, adds up. And just to be fair, this isn't me. I'm not some super smart person. I did not come up with this at all. I did not do any of this research. I'm very thankful to the research analysts in the Kansas Legislative Research Department. They are a lot smarter than me, and I am very thankful that they were able to, first of all, figure out how much carbon there is, how many taxpayers are in Kansas, and just work backwards to figure out what price you'd have to penalize the pollution in order to give away that money, $500 a month.
Nice. Yeah, I won't lie. It would have taken me a lot of Google searching to figure that all out. So that all makes sense.
It took them about 2 or 3 days to get me the answer. So I was just so impressed.
No, definitely. Yeah. Let me see if there are any more direct questions pertaining to this. I see a couple that aren't, and I wanted to hold off till the very end for those, and then we can go from there. Which, we only have a couple minutes left technically on the town hall. So maybe I'll just ask you those. So I have a question in here is, I guess, so someone asked, how can other members of the KDP help your office immediately while the legislature's in session? I'm not for sure exactly if this is meaning to this bill or just in general. So I don't know, is there anything, I guess, for people to reach out to you, or, I guess, anything like that? What would you recommend if people wanted to reach out to you while this legislature session is in play, I guess I should say.
What is the question?
I guess they're asking if how can I guess KDP, which I guess that would be the Kansas Democratic Party, help your office immediately while your legislature is in session? Well, in
regards to this policy, I would first of all say, the Democratic Party just needs to get behind this policy. Because as far as I know, I'm the only representative in Kansas working to make sure you get these $500 checks every month for the rest of your life. Even when it comes to these, economic issues or these environmental issues, the Kansas Democratic Party doesn't go as far as I go. So if they want to be helpful to me, or just be helpful to the movement, or to the working class people of Kansas, they can get behind these issues. And I would fully encourage and appreciate their support of these issues. But, I think one thing I always get asked is, how are you going to get these policy proposals passed, get them through Republicans, because Republicans control the legislature? That's not the problem. That's not the difficulty. The problem is how do you get Democrats on board to fight for what they campaign on? Because, Democrats campaign on fight for the working class, and they turn around and they sit on their hands and do nothing. So I don't know. I don't have a quick answer to that. I don't know how you get the Democratic Party to actually legislate on their campaign promises. I don't know how to do that.
So I guess people should reach out to their elected officials, is what it sounds like, and pressure them more. That would
absolutely
be, I guess, the first step. I was curious. Have you talked to someone asked about Representative Tim Hodges? Does that name sound familiar to you, Aaron?
Mm,
He mentioned something about if you've started a coalition with him about a tax on millionaires' income, on millionaire income earners in Kansas, which I don't know if that's something that he's talked about, but I see that in the chat, and so I wanted to bring it to your attention so I'm not overlooking any questions.
yeah, I mean, I know he's one of our Democratic legislators. But no, I don't really. I really can't say. Haven't really heard much about that or any of his policies.
Very fair, very fair. Well, if I will say if uh, Mr. Hodges is, I hope I'm saying that correctly. I'm horrible sometimes at names, but if he is your representative, you might reach out to him and have him reach out to Aaron about that, and maybe Aaron before this session's over. I know we only got a month left now, since the month I think will be over on Sunday in the last
Well,
4 weeks.
honestly, I think the legislative session is probably going to be over, in the next two to 4 weeks. I mean, we're wrapping up. I mean, we're wrapping up, and they want to leave town and leave Topeka and go back to the districts. I mean, we're basically just wrapping up for the year.
Well,
Essentially,
that doesn't sound fun. The work's not done yet. You still got 4
I
weeks
know.
left.
Well, I wish we were full time. I wish the legislative session was year round because we have so much work to do. But we just, we have the state statute, which I guess we write the laws, we write the state statutes, so we could change this at any time. But currently, it says we can only meet for 90 days of the year. So the first 90 days of the calendar year, that's all we can have.
Fair enough. I guess that does make sense. Well then, I guess then ending, what would be the best way if people were interested in this or had any critiques or any further questions? What would be the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, I have my email on my Facebook page. That's always a good way to get a hold of me. I have my cell phone if you want to get a hold of me that way, or you can send me a message through my Facebook Messenger on my Facebook page at Aaron Coleman for Kansas. But I just think I know a lot of people in Wyandotte County or just across Kansas could benefit greatly by receiving this $500 a month for life. So if you have any friends, if you can tell them to call their state representatives, call those state senators, call other people's state representatives, and tell them that you want your $500 check and you want it forever. You want it every single month. You want that money. You are entitled to that money, and you tell them that they work for you, not these corporations, not for the fossil fuel industry. And you tell them you don't care if the fossil fuel industry is funding their reelection. You want them to take them on.
No, definitely. So yeah, so basically, reach out to you on Facebook. I'm sure if they looked online, they could find your representative email if they wanted to go through that channel. And then really, I guess sounds like you seem pretty easy to get a hold of if you have access to Facebook, but otherwise, you have your official representative email. I don't know what is that real quick. Want to plug that real quick?
Yeah, it's just aaron.coleman@house.ks.gov.
Say that one more time.
Well, it's aaron.coleman@house.ks.gov.
Very good, very
Gov.
good.
But if you just look up, Kansas legislature, go to the official website. You can look any of the legislators up.
Very good.
On the official website if you need to get a hold of me that way.
Okay, sounds good, Aaron. Well, hey, real quick, then what's our next town hall going to be about?
I'm undecided. It's either going to be about, possibly we're going to discuss this new lobbyist bill, where essentially where I'm going to require lobbyists to wear a body camera, and that recording is going to be a public document, because the members of the public should be able to know what these lobbyists are saying to lawmakers when they're pushing their agenda. So that's one possibility. I have another idea, another bill that I published. Essentially, I want to, in the bill, the bill would decriminalize all drugs because I truly believe drug use is a mental health problem and not a criminal one. And if you really look at the statistics of people who are in prison for drug crimes, which by the way, a large percentage of people in prison are for drug crimes, but looking at that number, a lot of those people who are drug offenders, they have some sort of underlying mental health problem in of itself. So, drug use really is a mental health problem. And, so I hope everybody would join us again for our next town hall.
In contrary, that's just decriminalizing. That's legal, not legalizing, correct?
Oh, no, it will not. Well,
I
it
know
will
I've seen people
distribution and
say that.
manufacturing. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, no, distribution and manufacturing of all drugs will still be a felony. You're still going to do some serious jail time if you're manufacturing or distributing drugs. What this is doing is it's decriminalizing it for simple possession. So if you're caught with, a couple grams of cannabis or a couple grams of, unfortunately something a little bit stronger than cannabis, you're going to have your drugs seized. It's going to be $100 fine. And if that drug is something other than cannabis, we are going to refer you to drug treatment because usually right now, if you like, let's say you're caught with let's say you're caught with shrooms, okay?
Yeah.
If you're caught with shrooms right now, magic mushrooms, you're going to prison. You're going to prison. No, under this bill, if you're caught with that same drug, now you're going to be referred to drug treatment. And I just think that just makes so much more sense.
Oh, very nice. So maybe I won't lie, I kind of like that one, but I'll let you tell me what the next one will be, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
But that might be a good one to go over and get more into details about.
Yes.
So with that, I want to thank everyone for joining us for, I believe, this fourth Aaron Coleman Town Hall, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their Saturday night, and you as well, Aaron.
Thank you, Gavin. I hope everybody has a great night and stay safe.
Yep. Thank you, everyone.